Okay, so I think I have everything ready to go today. So I just want to welcome everybody to our Tuesday call. I sometimes forget to introduce myself. So I'm Leona Domchek. I'm a parent consultant with CPAC, and I'm really happy that you can be with us today. And today we have with us Kelly Annelli. Did I say that wrong?
No, you said it right. Perfect.
Okay, it rhymes, so I remembered that.
Right.
He's the director of member organizational services at Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we've tried to on Tuesdays, as everybody knows, when they join, is just kind of have a vast array, variety of different topics that we can talk about. So we're really excited that you can be with us today. This is one of the topics that has come up and people have asked us to talk about. So I'm going to turn it over to you and thank you again.
Okay, great. I'm just taking a moment to share my screen.
Not a problem. And I do want to remind people both here and on Facebook that if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask them. If you want to write it in the chat or in the comment section on Facebook, we will be happy to answer them.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I am the Director of Member Organization Services at the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Currently, I will just let everybody know that we are still 100% functioning. Domestic violence doesn't take a break from COVID, so neither do we. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what our services are and the impact of what COVID-19 has had on domestic services statewide. So, the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence is a member organization. There are 18 members throughout the state. You can see this pretty map how we cover the entire state. We have 16 shelters and 2 host homes. Our host homes are free on day stay, usually utilize a hotel or a space like that. That borders Connecticut, so that if we have somebody that's actually fleeing the state by plane, by train, by automobile, however they're going to get there, they usually just move to our host home to keep bed space open in our shelters with a longer term, usually about 60 days. We average about 47-day stays. During COVID, of course, that has changed along with social distancing. We do have 237 beds in the state of Connecticut for domestic violence emergency shelter. But those usually operate at about 129% capacity, which means that we have individuals that are coming in and having to stay in maybe our children's space where we're putting mattresses, air mattresses in there, or possibly in our living rooms or other rooms that we utilize for overflow, given that they may have come in and they needed immediate safety. So we were bringing them in that way until we could find a more permanent, comfortable space for them. So the state of Connecticut domestic violence programs serve about 38,000 people a year. That's 33,000 adults and about 5,000 children. We receive hotline calls. As of January 1st, we went live statewide with our new initiative called Safe Connect Connecticut. So before Safe Connect, excuse me, there were 20 emergency lines. Each program had their own line. So each member had the lines, which were 18 domestic violence hotlines. And then we had a statewide English and a statewide Spanish. And as of January 1st, we condensed all of them into one line, which is CT Safe Connect, which is housed out of CCADV. So we have that now, where it's a one-stop triage for victims of domestic violence. There's usually 6 advocates on. There's always a Spanish-speaking advocate. Multiple languages are spoken on language line. And there's also a text option, a chat option, and an email option too, for those that are not comfortable talking on the phone, for those that may be hearing impaired, or that they just want to test the waters possibly with a chat or a text, which makes it more accessible for victims of domestic violence. About 32,000 individuals receive court-based services. That is in both criminal and family court. So we have family violence in both the civil court and the criminal court. Number is relatively our highest number, given that there is a state statute in place that if there is a domestic violence arrest, that we are statutorily obligated to reach out to the victim to see if they want assistance in court. We're not lawyers and we can't practice law. However, we can be there as advocates and help navigate the already confusing court system, and just kind of be that person's rock that will stand next to them during court proceedings. On average, we have about 2,000 individuals in shelter throughout the year. Half of those are children, and 65% of those are under 6 and under. So we do have a lot of young children we see in shelter. Unfortunately, we average about 13 intimate partner homicides. And you'll hear me talk, I'll say domestic violence and intimate partner violence. The language is changing until it's completely changed throughout statute. We still utilize domestic violence, but we do look at our work for someone that is involved in an intimate relationship with the other person. We do work with family violence as well, but our main focus is for those that were involved in a intimate relationship. So what type of other domestic violence services do our programs provide? We have 24/7 care every day of the year. So we never stop operating. We are always there. Our hotline is always there. We have emergency shelter. We have transitional and permanent supportive housing. So that also includes with our transitional and permanent supportive, that is outside of our emergency shelter. So our transitional living is for about 2 years. We have 5 programs that have transitional living and 3 that have supportive housing. Permanent supportive housing is you're still having that case management piece, but you're more so on your own, where we're increasing the stability of a family as well as their sustainability and empowering them. Every program has a community educator, so we offer training and community education as well as CCADV. As you can see, I'm here today offering some community education. So we do have community education. Every program has a child advocate as well. So that child advocate works with the family as a whole and with the children in both community and in shelter. And then of course, we always have advocacy, empowerment, sustainability, and resources such as information referral that we provide to individuals experiencing domestic violence and their families. So what did COVID-19 do? So, you know, it's kind of like one of those days, the day that I relate it to St. Patrick's Day, which is very sad, but come around March 16th, we kind of came to a screeching halt. And really, I know a lot of people had to kind of scramble to figure out what we were doing. And an interesting piece that I say is that we do crisis work. I work in crisis work. So this is where we shine. We were ready. We moved with this. We stayed open. We figured it out. But some of the increases that we saw were coming from our community clients, where they started to experience food insecurity, financial insecurity due to layoffs or furloughs, employment concerns. I'm going to lose my job. A lot of individuals felt as though that the isolation. So COVID did in one way act as an abuser for the abuser. And how this happened was that control and power and control that an abuser has over a victim and the family, where that change was, now COVID was doing that for the abuser. So the abuser could actually say, all right, stay home, you're gonna go out, you're gonna get sick. I think it's all better we just stay home. Well, now eyes are always on the victim. So COVID kind of took away the need for the abuser to push for control, because COVID was doing it. It was keeping people home, it was making people stay home. Kids were home, everybody came home. Of course, that added some stresses with kids being home, with people losing jobs, where we didn't ever see a significant increase in the calls of domestic violence, but we did see an increase in the basic needs. Housing insecurity. A lot of people expressed that they were fearful of losing their houses because they weren't able to pay rent. We reached out to our partners, our law partners, to assist people with understanding what the process was, that they cannot lose their houses, that evictions were at a halt, what resources they had to assist them. And then, of course, when the judicial branches started to close down, and we were only down to 6 judicial branches that were only operating 3 days a week and only seeing high risk and arraignments, that put custody, divorce, all of those things at a halt, which really made people very, very anxious, because now they may be in the home with that person that they were already in a custody battle with, or where that divorce or that restraining order was going to come into play, and now it's no longer in the front of the line. A more more serious cases were being viewed. And access to transportation. A lot of the transportation system shut down and people weren't able to get to doctor's appointments. So just some of the data that came through with the impact of COVID-19 and just from March 16th to June 22nd. So our largest need again was food. There was a large increase of need of food, gift cards, financial assistance, diapers, transportation. Our calls increased to 50 minutes per call, which usually when our calls are at a 19, 20-minute triage, they're 50 minutes because of the isolation. Individuals were not able to get to talk as much. So that one call that they had that brief window for, they were packing every piece of information and every need that they had right into that call, where we saw a really large increase on calls. Our shelter services expanded where we had to adhere to social distancing, so we moved to hotels. So though we're at 129%, we had close to 20% of our people in hotels, which really put a strain on our resources, trying to pay for hotels to maintain social distancing. In our shelters, where we may have had 3 singles in one room, now we had to keep only one, just for the safety of everybody. So between May 1st and May 31st, an interesting trend that we did see was 62% of the individuals who contacted our Safe Connect, our hotline, had never previously sought services before. And that is both in our member programs and Safe Connect. So previous to that, these 62% of people during this month were reaching out now for resources. So we did see an increase in what basic needs they needed. And then in the comparison versus April to May, which we wanted to see when we started to get into full months of COVID and the changes, we saw a 26% increase in specific concerns around COVID. So individuals were calling with specific concerns relating to COVID, such as where do I get tested? How do I help my kids? What if my kids have it? What if my abuser is exposing me to COVID? How can I get money if I have COVID and I can't work? A lot of our individuals are undocumented. So how are they going to continue their work if they have COVID and their income? We saw an increase in 21% increase in housing needs, a 19% increase in financial needs, and then a 29% increase in calls from law enforcement as a result of LAP. So LAP, we call it LAP, is a lethality assessment program in the state of Connecticut. It's a evidence-based program. Connecticut is the only state that does it across the entire state and all municipalities, including state police, local police, tribal police, and college campuses. As well, it's an 11-question survey. It's a questionnaire that measures the lethality at the scene of a domestic. If the first 3 questions are answered yes, it's high lethality. Law enforcement will call in with the victim as long as the victim wants to. If the officer just has a gut feeling that maybe they're not answering and just wants to connect them with an advocate, they can do that as well. This makes that warm handoff from the crime scene, pretty much the incident, to being able to talk with an advocate live and understanding that they do have options and how to safety plan. If that's the least we can do, is just develop a safety plan with them. But that is done at every call that law enforcement goes to. And there does not have to be an arrest being made when they're doing the lab. So what we did was we found an interesting stat come the end of May, is that the first 76 days of quarantine, we were saying that should be 316 to 331, or 317 to 331, or goodness gracious, 317 to 531, sorry, compared to the previous days where we did not have COVID or COVID concerns, where we saw a 20% increase of incoming and outgoing calls. Well, that was mainly because a lot of our offices became remote. Our shelters stayed open, staff did stay within the offices, but we did move to mobile advocacy in many of our programs. And then again, that time spent on calls and an increase of 8% on crisis intervention, where the person was actually in immediate crisis, did not want to call law enforcement, and were calling us for a response. So we did see an increase there. We did maintain above average, where we averaged since the beginning of COVID about 112% capacity, adding a 20% additional to those being sheltered in hotels. That increase also was a strain on resources for providing food, providing basic needs at the hotels, and the mobile advocacy that we were doing there as well. And we also have a program in Connecticut. It's CCADV's Rapid Rehousing Program, which is traditionally done out of the homeless providers. But currently the Rapid Rehousing Program is DV specific, where we hold monies for. And during COVID, we were able to still continue to enroll 52 families and successfully house 31 of those families and in an average of 16 days. So, I mean, systems were still working. I know where very often we hear that negative, like it fell apart, everything fell apart and everything closed and we were left out there, you know, high and dry, where in all actuality, everybody, social services were still trying to do the best they can and meet people where they were at. And especially, you know, the human service trying to ensure that people were safe and finding different ways to make sure that people were getting the resources that they need. And this is just one example moving forward, though courts are opening up. Again, the family court has a lot of strain on it because now there's a backlog, a 3-month backlog on everything that was going on in court, which they're really scrambling to figure out how they're going to get everybody back in court, social distancing safely. If you've ever been in a courthouse, there's really not, they're not that big. The court itself is, but the rooms are small. How can we socially distance individuals that are there for a hearing? On April 6th, the courthouse is closed. They went down to reduced hours. So we petitioned the court system, we petitioned judicial to allow us to do restraining orders online. So we were able to file all the restraining orders online and have a marshal serve them, which previously you would have to go into the clerk. You would have to file your restraining order in civil court with the clerk's office. You would have a hearing, be granted a temporary restraining order, as we call it, a TRO. And as of April, we have Safe Connect itself has done 98 restraining orders, and our member orgs have done an additional 73, which is excellent because we know that we're able to continue to keep people safe. We've also worked with judicial to have, if there is a hearing, to have somebody come in remotely rather than going straight to the court. If they do have to attend court, or if you do know someone that has to attend court that's a victim of domestic violence, or they need transportation, they can call Safe Connect. We are offering transportation to court and medical appointments for them and their children, their families, if that's what they need. So CCADV has put aside some funding for assistance with transportation and, again, assistance with the restraining orders. So what's the future impact of COVID-19? So we know that we're going to have continued growing need for financial support. We're going to have to be very creative with our grants. Many of our grants have specific outcomes and deliverables where we're not able to play with the money. We have to remain whatever the objectives are that's listed in the grant. A lot of our funders have been excellent in allowing us to move some of the money around, given that we're not doing as much transportation as we have previously, so we can utilize it in other areas. But the concern now that the state's reopening is what's going to happen with background, what's going to happen that I wasn't able to pay my utilities. How can I go back to work if I don't have childcare? We know that childcare is only functioning at 50% for those that have opened when there was already a deficit in childcare spots in the first place. I will say that if you know anybody that needs care for kids, right now Care for Kids has no backlog, which first time I've ever heard in probably 20 years. So if you do know somebody that needs to apply for Care for Kids, Care for Kids they're moving their paperwork through rather quickly, and they have a lot of different openings and regulations that have been lifted along with restrictions so that they're able to allow people to look for work without showing that they're looking for work, but still receive childcare and really give access to that subsidy. We're very nervous about the increase in violence as the state reopens. During phase one, during the onset of COVID, we did not have any fatalities, again, which we thought we would given isolation, but COVID worked as an abuser. We're seeing now that as the state reopens, during phase one, we did have 1 fatality and 2 near deaths. So that also is a fear that as a loss of the control from the abuser, where the family is maybe the children are going back to camp or they're enrolled in an activity, the victim may be going back to work or just able to leave the house to go see their family, is that we're nervous and really keeping an eye on the increase of violence that may happen. The increase of shelter needs as people are starting to experience that go hand in hand where people are going to be housing and need shelter. And we have to continue social distancing. We've seen some of the information that's coming out from the State Department of Education, from the governor, how things are continuously changing. Every day is a different story, but as of right now, we know that we have to maintain the social distancing. So still utilizing hotels. At first, we know that hotels were very accommodating to us, given that there were nobody going to hotels, nobody was traveling, so they were happy to accommodate us in giving individual space with a discount, and we're very, thankful, but we know that in the future that is slowly going to change as people start to travel again. Of course, PPE, what is it going to look like when we go back to our in-person work? And then how are we returning to service safely with our offices as well, given that we are in the court systems, we are in the school systems, we are on college campuses? How is that going to look? And then we also are working on renovations to maintain social distancing in some of our smaller offices, including children's spaces. Usually kids are playing in our offices or playing in our children's spaces. So what is that going to look like as kids are coming in and out of shelter as well? So I am actually open for any questions, but I also put on here, so again, my name is Kelly Annelli. I have my email up here, which is kannelli@ctcadv.org. But I also wanted to share, I know some of you probably can't see my screen if you're on the phone, but I do want to share the Safe Connect information. So it's ctsafeconnect.org. And that will bring you right to email, call or text, or have a live chat. And the statewide hotline is 888-774-2900. And again, counseling, support groups, emergency shelter, court advocacy, safety planning, lethality assessment. We work with law enforcement, information referrals, and 24/7 care. It's all free. It's all confidential. You do not have to be a victim to call. If you just would like some information around maybe a friend or a family member, or just run something by our advocates, we are here to listen. We're here to help, and no one ever has to disclose their name. You can call and say you're Sally Sue and have a full conversation with our advocate. So often we have people call back. They want to test the water first because we are strangers, and they call back. So you're welcome to call at any time. Again, we're 24/7, and I thank you all for giving me your time today and learning a little bit about what's going on with domestic violence during the pandemic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Oh. A couple of things is we did have some questions, or just to know if the presentation would be available later. So it is available on Facebook. We were able to Facebook Live it today. So it is available for you to view at your convenience on Facebook Live. And that's on Connecticut Parent Advocacy main Facebook page. And it will be available also on our YouTube. And we can share all of those out to you so that if you were on your phone and you wanted to have the information, it is there. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself. I'm just gonna pop over to Facebook real quick.
I do have a question.
Yes, please go right ahead.
So I am an ombudsperson for the town of Norwalk. And my question is in reference to supports available for parents that are Spanish bilingual. I understand that there was information that was provided via chat session for them. However, many of them that attempted to log in had emailed me and told me that they were not able to log in. Is this something that was canceled, or is it going to happen in the near future? How is that going to be scheduled?
The live chat has been operating since November 1. I know our text platform went down for about a week, but outside of that, the live chat for Safe Connect is fully functioning right at ctsafeconnect.org. We utilize the peer chat platform, so it's there. Your Norwalk program is DVCC, the Domestic Violence Crisis Center, as well. And they do have a Spanish advocate on, but also if they would like to call Safe Connect, there is always a Spanish advocate on the hotline as well.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions while Kelly's here and you have her ear? Well, again, the information is on Facebook, and this has been recorded and will be shared. So if you have any questions, Kelly's information's there. If you can't remember what it was, because you're doing a bunch of things at once, because that's what we do nowadays. We were just saying, Kelly and I were saying before it started, we missed some of the way that things used to be, because we're kind of sitting in everybody's living room, or we're trying to keep the kids quiet and do 5 different things. So feel free to check back or to check with her or to share the resources. So if you have any pages that you're on that you would like to share this with, to keep passing that information along so that we get it out there. So anyway, Kelly, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We really appreciate it. To everybody who joined us, thank you for continuing to share the information you would like for us to bring to you. It's our pleasure to be able to connect with these guest speakers and to get them here to answer those questions and making sure that we're hitting all of the avenues that are out there. So just before we go, a friendly reminder of all the stuff that we have coming up at CPAC. On Thursday at 3 o'clock is our English support call. So today, this week, Lisa and myself will be just talking about seeing how everybody is doing as we transition into summer. And as we have, it's just a time of year where we have a lot of transition for those who are transitioning into summer, then to ESY or whatever the case may be. We want to know what's going on. Also in Spanish on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. is our Spanish support calls, and at Wednesday at, I'm going to say 4 p.m. and for some reason I'm going to think I have it wrong, and I apologize. It might be 3. But we do advertise them every week. They're on Facebook. Come take a look at everything we have to offer. Our parent consultants are available to you. Feel free to call our office at any time or email us. Thanks again, Kelly. Thank everybody for joining us, and we'll see everybody really soon.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.